Hey, everybody, you got in a little trouble. You did your time, or maybe you did no time at all because everything got dropped, and it's time for you to get that thing off your record. You may have thought it was, and it wasn't. Today, we're going to talk about criminal expungements here in Maryland and some new changes as of this year. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. This is your accident and injury guy, Jobeth Bowers, coming at you live from my Elkton office. We weren't here last week because it was a holiday. If the mail and the courts are closed, then I'm not doing this podcast. So here we are back to regular operations. And I teased this episode a couple weeks ago because as of October 1st of this year, there are new changes, some additions, and this is something that's been happening for the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's arguable to say that some of these changes have been taking place in the legislature for the past 10 or more years with respect to criminal expungements here in Maryland. And I've got a special guest who handles criminal expungements, although that's not her primary practice area. It's just kind of a ancillary thing that goes along with what she regularly does. Good morning. I want to introduce Elisabeth Herndon, who is an attorney also here in Maryland. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit, before we get into the expungement thing, tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do on a daily basis. And also, I want to remind everybody that if you are in here watching this live, make sure you drop a comment in here. That way we see your name, because we don't see your name. I just see a number of people that are in here. But if we've got 5 or more people that chime in the chat through this episode, we are going to be giving out a $25 gift card to the grocery outlet here in Elkton. So without ignoring that interruption, tell us a little bit more about you and your practice and what it is you do every day, Liz.
Sure. So I have a practice. I'm Elisabeth Herndon. So my law firm is Herndon Law. Makes sense. And
You hired the same creative team that I hired to name my firm.
Absolutely. I saw it working for you and I was like, same deal, go for it. So, and I do both criminal defense and family law. So on the criminal defense side, which has to do with what we're talking about today, basically you get charges, anything from a traffic ticket up to the most serious charges, assault, murder, drug charges, anything of the like. You need someone to defend you. That person could be me. And then the expungements, like I said, they're sort of ancillary to that, like you mentioned. And then I do family law. So most of what that looks like is divorce and custody work, whether it is getting you a divorce or whether you have a custody agreement and something's not working and you need it modified and changed. That's a lot of what I do.
And normally, when we do these episodes, a lot of times, as most of the folks that are watching know, most of these are tailored toward accidents and injuries and what I do every day. When we have special topics that need to be addressed, I bring in somebody like yourself who does the thing. That way we could talk about it. And then what I normally will tell folks is, hey, if you need the services of Liz in her office, call us. We can connect you to her. Well, here's the spoiler alert. If you have been calling my office for any time in the past handful of years with one of the matters that Elisabeth handles, she is probably who we're sending you to. So if you're watching this on the back end, you've made that call, you've already talked to Liz. So today, what I want to talk to you about and to get your insight on are expungements here in Maryland.
Sure. So these laws change a lot. I think
almost every year, it seems.
Yeah, every year there's something new that's going on. So something new that came up a couple years ago that was quite interesting was, if you're familiar with, those of you watching Maryland Judiciary Case Search, if you're a Marylander, you probably are, because our state has a very good system for looking up cases. From my understanding, it's a lot better and more user-friendly than other states. And now when your case gets dropped, null prost is the technical term, but basically when your case gets dismissed or you're found not guilty, it automatically doesn't show up on there anymore, with or without filing for a formal expungement. And sometimes that's all people care about, is I don't want it popping up on case search because the charges were dropped, and now that's automatic. So That's exciting. And one of the new things that we're going to see coming this year is happening now because we're already into October, is that we're going to be getting some automatic expungements for some of those after 3 years. So you don't need to do anything, and it should be expunged. I'm looking forward to see how this plays out, but obviously we have some time to see. However, you can get it expunged earlier if your case is dropped. If your case is dropped, you're eligible to get it expunged right away, but you need to sign this specific waiver. And the reasoning behind it is that when your case is expunged, they destroy all the records. So the courts, the state wants to make sure that no lawsuit is going to come out of this case. Like, you're not going to sue the police department, but then there's no records, because that's just a mess. It doesn't make sense to have it that way. So if you want it expunged right away, you need to sign this general waiver and release that basically says, I'm not suing anyone. We're good to get rid of the records, because you can't get rid of the records and have a lawsuit. Those two things just both can't happen. So,
and let's distinguish something not showing up on case search, which is now the norm, and something actually being expunged, because some people I have run into over the past years when I was doing expungements more regularly would think that those two were one and the same.
Sure.
And they're not.
So not showing up on case search just means that when you go to the website, it's not going to populate with your name. But if it is not expunged, it still exists in the court records. You could go to the courthouse and pull that file, and it would still be there.
And if you're in court for something in the future, the judge up on the bench will have access to it as well. They're not digging through case search like your neighbor or the parent of somebody that you might start dating, or the best friend of somebody that you're hanging out with is trolling you on case search. The judge is looking at a totally different system, of course.
Yes. And so when it's expunged, it gets wiped from that system. And that's the difference, is that when it's expunged, it's wiped from everywhere. When it is just off of case search, it's just off of that one website.
So I guess, and you may not know the answer to this question because it's so brand new. The state may not know the answer to this question, because I believe that they've set up, starting October 1st, anything that was dropped or not guilty or otherwise will automatically be expunged in 3 years. So they may not even know the answer to the question that I'm going to ask, but I'm wondering is, when these get expunged, normally when there's an expungement, you filed a petition, you said, hey, court, expunge this. The court says, yes, this is eligible for expungement. And then every agency connected to it gets an order that says expunge it. And then they send out what's called a certificate of compliance. I'm interested to see, so I guess this is more of a curiosity than a question, whether or not those agencies will send out the certificate of compliance. Like, is there actually going to be that process of an order and everything like there is now when we manually file one?
Yeah, I'm not sure. My guess would be that they're still going to send the certificate of compliance, but I don't know. We're going to have to see. We're going to have to wait and see how they do it. But it's certainly going to make it a lot easier for people.
I mean, all of this stuff, and for anybody who does not know and is curious and is interested, this stuff has evolved so much in Maryland over the past 10 years, maybe even longer. It used to be, if we were doing expungements for somebody, because even before I was an attorney, I was working for a law firm and we handled expungements. So I had I was knee deep in this process before I even went to law school. But you would have to take somebody's record of charges and look at them in reverse order of time. And once you hit a guilty, you couldn't go back any further. And that has since changed. And, so you used to, now you can jump around, and if you have early charges that got dropped or whatnot, those can be expunged, so on and so forth. It used to be that absolutely nothing, no excuses, nothing that you were found guilty for could be expunged. And then they added a certain little subset of like nuisance crimes, like public urination and drunk and disorderly and things like that, that even if with a guilty you could do it, and then now there's a whole nother list of guilties that you can get expunged. Which brings me to the next thing to talk about. It used to be that if you had a probation before judgment, there was a period of time for most charges in which you could get that expunged, except the big nasty DUI related charges.
Yeah,
There
this
was
is something that's for the
yeah,
first time coming to light.
yeah.
Um, DUI, probation before judgment's not a guilty finding. That's a very important distinction. If you go to court and you
Mhm.
don't serve time, but your sentence is suspended and it's a guilty, we're not talking about that. That is still not expungible. But if you have a probation before judgment, and if you're a defendant in one of those cases, you should know what it is. You are eligible to get it expunged. I believe it's 15 years after you've done everything you needed to do. So it's not 15 years from the date in which you were in court and you received that probation before judgment, but it's 15 years. So if you received, 2 years of probation, 15 years from when your probation ended.
That's a big deal, and I think that, and maybe this comes from me primarily handling the accident cases and dealing with auto insurance companies all the time, but has been my thought that this complete prohibition up and until this October, this complete prohibition on expunging PBJ DUIs was all a racket from the insurance company and probably their lobby. Maybe that's me being a little bit of a conspiracy theorist and living in a world where that those insurance companies are quote unquote the bad guy in that world. But it's nice to see. I mean, 15 years is still a long time, but to be able to make that
Not never.
disappear, yeah. Well, it's a lot sooner than never.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a lot sooner than never, and before it was never. And the way that the trend is going is we keep seeing that we get more and more opportunities to expunge. One thing that we still don't have that was pushed for that did not go through was expungement for good cause. That's something that I would like to see happen in the future, which is where you can just petition the court and say, here's why I deserve an expungement, and basically base it on personal circumstances. So you're not saying, hey, I check all the boxes, but basically I would be filing a petition saying my client deserves an expungement. John Doe specifically deserves this because he did A, B, and C, and he's had these accomplishments, and this is the scenario. And don't look at just the law, but here's what John Doe did on a case by case basis. That would be something nice to see. We don't have that yet.
And I think it's kind of, from my observation, when I have time to be in and involved in what's going on in the legislature, a lot of it's accident and insurance related stuff, but sometimes I'm tuned in on the expungement stuff. A lot of this stuff, it takes a couple of years of, hey, let's push it. Okay, it died. Let's push it. It went a little further. Okay, we figured out what everybody didn't like about it. Now we're going to put this version in, and it almost gets to the finish line. And then in years 4 and 5, it a lot of times get there. And then what you see, and this is me, I'll forecast this now. It was what, 5 or 6 years ago that they put together the Justice Reinvestment Act.
Yeah, it's been a bit now.
Yeah. And what that did was it opened the door to some of these other guilty findings on select situations.
Yeah, we're getting
Yeah.
a lot more expungement opportunities. That was a big one.
And what happened with that was there was a subset of charges where you had to wait 15 years and then you could file an expungement, another subset for 10 and another subset for 5. And I think it may have just been 15 and 10 the first year. And then
Maybe.
Eventually what happened is some of those 15s got pushed down to 10. Some of those 10s got pushed down to 5.
And it was a
And
substantial bill enough that I know I don't remember it because I remember looking at the list and there were so
yeah.
many, which is great. That's what we
Oh,
want.
it became something that when we would do these, 10 years ago, when we would do expungements, I'd have all of the rules for absolutely everything there would be no questions. I knew exactly what I could and couldn't do just by looking at it. Now, if I'm doing expungements, I need to have that JRA list and the entire statute that says what's what and where and what are the time frames, because they do change every so often, and things get upgraded. So anybody who's sitting there saying, hey, I finished my probation on a DUI 5 years ago, 10 years sounds like a long way to go. Well, keep checking back in, because we tell people this anytime I would do expungements and expungement clinics and have things that, I would be very careful to tell people, we can't expunge this today. But if I come around here in a year or 2 years, you're not wasting my time to sit here and have me look at it again, because sometimes those numbers change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not a pipe dream. Like 5 years, 2 years ago, hell, last year, I would have told somebody, oh, DUI, not happening.
Yeah.
Now the story is different. Big waiting period, but it's still happening. So, anything, I think that probably sums up most of the new updates for this year. Anything I'm missing?
I think that pretty much covers it. I think it's really important to check online, check in, because these laws are ever evolving. And I will say that there are a lot of expungement clinics out there that do these for absolutely free. And if you are interested, you can look up expungement clinics in my area and see what you can find.
Yeah. And otherwise, if you're looking to get something done more immediately, something where you're paying somebody to go through and make sure it's done absolutely right the first time, not to say that doesn't happen at the expungement clinics. Liz and I have put on plenty of expungement clinics in years past. The dynamics of things since 2020 have changed to the point where it's not as feasible for us now as it once was. But feel free to give our office a call. We'll connect you with Liz to make sure that you want to get something done and done today, that we can get it done. And also, of course, if you are interested in, if you have the need for any representation for anything in the criminal traffic area or family law, call us. We'll get you to Liz. We do it all the time, probably almost every day. We're sending somebody your way.
If you're married and you don't want to be anymore, give me a call.
That's right. What do they say? Anybody who says that money can't buy you happiness has never paid for a divorce. All right, that's it. We're breaking out the bad jokes, so it's time to call this to an end. Guys, nobody's going to comment in the chat. I can see the number of people that are watching the stream right now, and it's enough for us to do the competition. But all right, we'll do the drawing next week.
They have no questions because we just did such a fabulous job that
I've told people all you have to do is type enter me in there. That can be your comment. You don't have to ask a question. I can see the number of people that are watching the episode, but I cannot see your name. And if I don't see your name, I cannot put you on the wheel of names to do the drawing. So that's it. We're longer than I want these to be. I try to keep them to 10, 15 minutes. We're at 18 now. So yes, another number that I am able to see. So next week, everybody tune in, because I do this unless there is a holiday in which the courts are closed. I do this every Monday at 10 a.m. Obviously, folks are tuning in. Just type something in the chat box next time and we'll do a drawing, because that gift card is just sitting here waiting for somebody out there to win it. Until next time, if you have any questions that you want to see addressed on this podcast, right there, send us an email. We'll get it on here next time. That's what we're here for. And until next time, have fun out there. Be safe.
Thanks.